Hi everyone. You know the drill. Like, share, sub, comment if you want. Um, just wanted to give a little bit of an update on my colorectal cancer and what's been happening the last, I don't know, it's around 6 months, 5.5, 6 months. Um, the last scan that I had in August showed that what was left of the tumor, according to the radiology report, had shrunk down from the reading in July was 1.4 centimeters by 3.8 centimeters, and in August had shrunk to 1.2 by 3.2. So at that point, I wanted to avoid surgery if at all possible and just try to take, I'm going to go ahead and use the names, ivermectin and fenbendazole. I was taking, at the time, 36 milligrams of ivermectin and 222 milligrams of fenbendazole. So I upped it to 48 and 444 of the fenben. I really should have been taking more of the ivermectin. 48 is not enough for my body weight of 90 kilos. So fast forward to this month, had another MRI, and it's kind of confusing. Also had blood test and a CEA test. The CEA test is a blood test that basically any number under 4.7 is any normal person that walks in and gets a CEA test that does not have cancer. So that number will vary, but it had been 2.7 during the treatments, 20 treatments in, when I had a total of 28, which even the chemo doctor was very surprised that it was that low that quick. He didn't expect to see it that low during treatments. Then back in the summer, it was 1.6, 1.1. So this time around, it was 2.5, which is higher than it was, but that's still well within normal range. It's not like it was 4.69 or, borderline in a bad spot. So the blood test numbers, CBC, all came back fairly normal. There were, I believe, 5 readings that were low, but they were all just slightly under the acceptable range. Like the bottom end on one was 37 and mine was 35.5 or 35.7. So very close. And there were 2 that were high that were also the same, just like 1 digit off of the high end of the reading. So, could just be kind of normal. I went through and charted all of my changes in blood work since 2020, and obviously had a lot of blood work done in 2024, which is when the cancer was really taking off. So all of the numbers are almost normal now, which they were not before. The hard part was the radiology report effectively shows that the tumor is a little bit bigger and a little bit longer than it was back in August. Now they're saying that it is 1.4 by 4.6, but that report also says up from a previous 1.0 by 3.6. So those numbers don't match any of the previous numbers from the previous scans. So I'm not sure if it's a difference in, one radiologist looks at the picture and says, okay, I think here's the start of the tumor and here's the end of the tumor, and here's the top and here's the bottom, and then someone else, a different radiologist, looks at a different set of pictures and says, well, I think that this is the start and here's the end. it, it's just kind of up in the air. So we are going to go over to the hospital. They don't need an appointment, but we just need to go to the radiology department and sit down and talk with one of these people that's interpreting these scans to see exactly what is going on, whether or not the cancer is coming back, getting bigger, etc. I am doing my best to avoid surgery because there's a lot of complications that go with it. Um, so the thing that I'm looking at right now, they call cryoablation, where it was pioneered in Israel, and basically they stick a really big needle in you, and they freeze the tumor with negative 180-degree argon, liquid argon, and they freeze it, let it thaw, and then freeze it again, and the ice crystals caused by the freezing actually destroy the cancer cells, because they freeze them solid and then let them thaw, and they just break open, break apart, and they're destroyed. So seems to be a very good success rate. It's minimally invasive, relatively pain-free, and it has a pretty quick recovery time. You go home the same day or maybe the next day, maybe one night in the hospital. But it does not have any of the complications, which I won't get into here, but I'll just say it's not pretty getting a piece of your colon removed. It's the whole thing goes on for several months, involves radiation and chemo all over again, because they assume that when they're cutting out pieces that they're freeing up cancer cells that would go into other places, and you have to wear a bag on one side, and then you got a 20% chance of having leakage at the point where they rejoin what they've cut out. So they'll section a piece out, sew the colon back, and then 20% odds that you're leaking there and can end up with sepsis and all sorts of fun stuff. And that's just a light overview. That's not even going into details about it. So yeah, not my first choice. You can really end up with permanent issues from doing all that stuff. Yeah, it's better than being dead, but if there's other ways to solve it, I would rather do the other ways. So the cryoablation is going to be interesting to find out about. From what I see now, it looks like it's, I'm going to call it a longer term solution. Does seem like the cancer does end up coming back, up to 5 years later. But the studies that show that don't say anything about how sick the people were that were in the study, if they had any other problems besides the colon cancer, or if they had other stuff going on. It just says, of the people that survived 5 years, all of them had the cancer come back. So it doesn't say what they died from during those 5 years. They could have had a heart attack, been hit by a car. There's nothing that says any of that. Or they had kidney failure, or, who knows what. So, still need to get more information, but we are going to look at a couple of hospitals here in Bangkok that do that procedure and talk to them and see what we can do. So anyway, just wanted to give an update, because I was looking forward to getting the results from the scan and finding that the tumor was gone or almost gone, which turns out it's not. But also, depending on what the radiology people say, it may be that it is not changing size. Um, could also be that it is changing size. Don't know. So we're going to find out this week, and then I will let everyone know. So really appreciate all the concern, the people that have messaged me directly asking, how things are and that sort of thing. This is not anything that you would wish on an enemy, that's for sure, and certainly not on a friend. But I appreciate all the support and prayers and everything else. So thank you, and I will update again when I have more information. Take care.